Uno is a game that overall is a fun time to play. But what makes it even more fun, particularly in the Ubisoft version, is the many decks that you'll come across. And there are 10 total. So, in today's video, we are going to rank every single one of them. So, without further ado, let us begin. Number 10 is Far Cry 6, otherwise known as the Call of Yara. Now, even though it's at the bottom, the idea of using in-game money to use on a phone in order to help you win, on top of saving money to use more powerful variants, is an interesting one. The problem is the execution. You have the ability to disable an opponent's phone, or all opponents' phones, an ability to make someone draw 1 to 3 or 4 to 6 cards, an ability to discard 1 to 3 or 4 to 6 cards, and an ability to use one of each color in your hand to make a wild or +4. The thing is, most of the time it feels like you really only use the discard option with the occasional moments of the drawing or phone disable features, and basically never seeing the wild card feature. You can also have the Guerrilla Radio, which is a neat way to make more money, but it also feels underwhelming. Can't really explain why though. Overall, it's a deck that could be much better, but lacks in many ways. At least the aesthetics look cool, but of course that's not saying much. Number 9 is the Winter deck. There are a few reasons I put this one here. For starters, it's just regular Uno, so nothing changes about it aside from the aesthetics. Speaking of those aesthetics though, they look very cheap. Like they almost seem like graphics you would see in a decent mobile game. The icy floor is fine, but the snow and the snowman are what give off these cheap vibes. But regardless of these nitpicks, it's higher than Call of Yara, since even though it's just regular Uno is a fun time, compared to Call of Yara being not as fun. Number 8 is the 50th Anniversary deck. The aesthetics in this deck honestly could be a contender for best looking in the game. Makes me think of the Oscars or Academy Awards. But let's talk about the deck's one and only special card. You pick 2 players, one gets head, the other gets tails, and then they do a coin flip, and whoever it doesn't land on has to draw 4. Then you pick a color like a wild. It's a cool idea, but I feel like this feature makes rounds go longer than I feel they should. Mostly because of the slow process of each action being, again, slow. Especially the animation of the coin flip. We've likely all had those rounds where a game can take hours, and I feel this deck makes those rounds most likely to happen. Number 7 is the Valhalla deck based off of Assassin's Creed. Combining Uno with a board game-like aspect is such a creative concept. If you play one of the number cards of 1 through 9, your game piece goes to the number you played, and if there's a chest on it, you get cargo, and if there's a flag, you get a random event. The cargo does a couple of things to help. You carry 4 total cargo. If you have 2, you can battle an opponent and have to play a card that is a different color to your opponent. Successfully doing it has the opponent burn 1 cargo and draw 2 cards, whereas the defender has to match the colors. and wilds will always match. With 4 cargo, you discard all of whatever color you play. The battle system is my main issue with this deck. Maybe it's because I've rarely been able to play this deck online, but fights are so repetitive, especially with AI who use it basically every turn, even if the target was nowhere near close to winning, making the round drag on longer than it should. Maybe me putting this here because of bad AI is a lame reason, but it's such an annoying thing that happens a lot that I couldn't ignore it. Number 6 is the Rabbids deck. The Rabbids sure know how to make Uno a chaotic time, and some of the chaotic stuff is good, while some of the chaotic stuff is not so good. I'd find the bomb card where whoever draws gets an additional 3 cards to be fun, as well as the defense card used when you are hit with a +2 or a +4 to pass it on to the next player. Yet it can be rare to see. The card where you have cards randomly distributed is helpful when someone is low on cards. The only card I don't like is the timer card, where you have 3 seconds to do anything for a minute. If you usually know which card you plan to play, it really doesn't do much, especially if you play the exact moment it becomes your turn. Now, aside from the cards, the look of it isn't that interesting. All it is just a whole bunch of light blue with the occasional plungers and toilet paper. Number 5 is the classic Uno deck. The deck likely everyone can like. I mean, there's so much to love about this classic little deck. With it being the type of Uno everyone and their grandma would know. A visually good looking deck with a very pretty red color, and probably some of the most jazzy and soothing music to go along with it. What's there to really hate? It's the classic Uno we all know and love. Yet, there are 4 other decks that are even better than it. Number 4 is the Phoenix Quest deck. Wow, a deck from a game I've never heard of. Good thing the deck is good. Each player gets a god and has to play 5 cards to unlock it. These include Aphrodite, who activates after playing an odd number card, allowing you to skip and discard 1. Hephaestos lets you discard all of a color after 3 cards played. Athena allows you to give 1 card to a player, and then you discard 1. And Ares lets you discard 2 of whatever color you played. And then there's the other 2 cards, one where you discard 2 cards, or a +4/-2, where you pick someone to draw 4, then they discard 2. And on top of that, the curse card makes you draw until it's gone. Can make the game fun as well. It's overall a good deck. Number 3 is the Rayman deck. Man, this deck is so beautiful. By far the best looking deck in the whole game. Of course, there's more than just the aesthetics in this deck. Like Rabbids, it has 4 special cards. There's the dragon that I call the Suck Dragon thanks to... Never mind about that. Anyways, it sucks up everyone's cards and randomly distributes them to everybody. Then, there's the heart-based card that copies whatever is on the discard pile, aside from special cards. Using Murphy will allow you to take a peek at someone's cards and then hide your own cards. And then lastly, a card similar to the one in the Rabbids deck, being the defense card. But it works differently, where you hit the player before you, and it doubles from however much was originally drawn. What can I say? Everyone loves Rayman. Number 2 is Uno Flip. Uno Flip is an extremely genius concept. I mean, I doubt I'd be able to come up with the concept of double-sided cards that have a specific card to change which side you go on between the light and dark sides. Both light and dark sides have different types of cards depending on the side. The light side is more tame, with a +1 and wild +2. Meanwhile, the dark side is more brutal, with a skip that can skip everyone, a +5, and a wild, where you draw until you get a card of the color chosen. It's an enjoyable deck every time I play it. And yet, it's not number 1. And if you know all the decks, you know what the real number 1 is. Number 1 is Just Dance. Of course it had to be Just Dance. This deck has everything good about it. The cards that make you draw 1 if playing non-number cards. The disco ball making everyone's card down to the lowest number. The UFO giving random action cards. And the card that swaps everyone's hand from the players across from them. The overall look. The music. God damn, this deck has the best music. All of this leads to me picking Just Dance as my favorite deck in all of Uno. And with that shall do it for my ranking of every single Uno deck. So, thank you guys all so much for watching all this opinion stuff for Uno. And with that being said, this is Squishy Mushroom signing out.